I still challenge anybody else in the entire scene to have better thumbnails and a better intro to our show than we do here at the OGC, because we do it right here. I'll tell you that much. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Pony Express Radio. It's episode 98. We're plugging right along, gentlemen. Returning once again is my friend, Mr. P. Quinones. You have been missed, sir. I knew you were excited to make your return. How are you?
Rumors of my demise and all that stuff. Glad to be back.
Yeah, they were greatly exaggerated, of course. All right, good to have you back. And welcoming to the show for the first time, Mr. Kevin DeAnna. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Glad to be on here, guys.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I'm happy to finally get you on the show here. If people aren't following your Twitter account, they absolutely should, because you're posting bangers all the time.
I do what I can.
Yeah. All right. So let's go through our shillings very quickly, and we'll pop into the story for this evening. So first of all, as always, even though White Boy Summer has drawn to a close here, that does not excuse you boys in the chat from getting shredded. So you must head on over to Axios Remote Fitness and Coaching. JD over there will get you guys shredded for the inevitable return of White Boy Summer next year. So head on over there. Also, if you guys are in need of your caffeine fix, head on over to Fox & Sons Coffee. Good friends of the show. I hear nothing but good reviews from all of you coffee drinkers out there. So head on over to Fox & Sons. And of course, we here at the OGC are fans of Big Tobacco. So if you need your nicotine fix, head on over to Alp Nicotine Pouches. People aren't paying attention to what Tucker Carlson is doing these days. Everyone should go listen to his most recent show with Jeffrey Sachs, and his opening monologue about Israel was fantastic. So everyone head on over to Alp for all of your nicotine pouch needs. All right, gentlemen, let's get right on into it. As the thumbnail suggests today, the number one story for this evening is the ADL. They took down their hate glossary and their hate index. So here we go.
I mean, the ADL has been the number one threat for people on the hard right for the longest time. And it's something that often gets overlooked, because if you were in the conservative movement years ago, the group that would call and get you fired was the SPLC. But even back then, you would find people within the conservative movement who say, well, I don't really take these guys seriously. Everybody took the ADL seriously. I think perhaps even more important than them getting rid of the ADL glossary, which of course is great, but Kash Patel saying that the FBI is not going to work with them anymore, making fun of Comey for writing what he called love letters to the ADL, and then saying that the ADL is this terrible organization that spied on Americans. Now, if you're on the hard right, your ears should perk up, because who do you think they were spying on? They were spying on us. That was who they were spying on. And this has got to be the first time in my entire life where the FBI, in some sense, I started to think of them as somebody that might actually be protecting my interests in some tiny, small way. That has never happened before. It's not even necessarily a good feeling. It made me a little uncomfortable, but it's definitely some kind of progress.
Yeah, it's like, is this what you're supposed to feel? Like you're watching Law and Order all the time, and the FBI are the good guys. Wow.
I'm about to get my fell for it again ribbon, but this is, you can't help but think that this is a good thing, because the ADL had such a stranglehold, and we're talking about like 50 years at this point, about who is allowed to participate in politics, about what groups are allowed to operate. And they did some things that, if we went into it, I mean, that's a subject for another podcast, you would say that's ridiculous. No group could get away with things like that and continue to operate, this kind of basically criminal activity. And yet they did, and they only grew in power. And in a remarkably short time, their legitimacy seems to have totally collapsed. And I think at the root of it, it's not even necessarily a victory for the right or the left. It's just that the ADL's double standard, which they've been able to maintain for so long, which was essentially an ethno-nationalist position for Israel, while fiercely opposing ethno-nationalism at home, has just become completely untenable on both the left and the right. And so they just have nothing to stand on as far as having a bipartisan coalition anymore.
I think this is an excellent point that you're talking about on both sides, right? Because if you're on the left side, they're very much on the point at this juncture of, well, nobody gets to be ethno-nationalist whatsoever. We talked about this recently with like the golems that these people have created on American college campuses who are just turning against Israel because they see Israel as a settler colonialist state as it relates to the Gazans. Whether it is or it isn't, is an argument to be had. But then you take it from the right, where it's like, oh, well, if Israel gets to be ethno-nationalist, then why don't we get to be ethno-nationalists? So either way, this is just a completely untenable position for this organization. And I think the other thing that's really funny about this is that this announcement of shutting down the hate glossary of extremism, right, came one day after Jonathan Greenblatt, made that statement at I forget which like international left wing conference he was at, but he was talking about how the ADL now has the like most lawsuits going on at any other point in the entire history of the organization, and then literally the next day, oh, we're going to shut down the extremism glossary. Too many people have taken screenshots of this and shared it on Twitter, showing that the Christian Cross and Christ is King and Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA are all hateful extremist groups akin to Nazis.
It was pretty funny seeing Matt Gaetz come out and what did he say? It was something along the lines of defending Christian identity, right? Where he's like, being identifying as a Christian is not hateful or something like that. There's so much confusion about a lot of these terms, because if you look at the glossary that they had, and then of course, if you look at what the SPLC used to do as far as labeling these types of groups, these groups had power when they kept the targets relatively limited. If you look at how a group like this was able to achieve real victories in the media sense, it was basically by making sure that somebody, let's say Jared Taylor, of course, famously is not anti-Semitic, but the ADL doesn't like him anyway. The way you keep that guy from getting safe haven in the conservative movement is you don't really expand the target list beyond him. But the ADL, of course, one of the things that I think led to this is they labeled Turning Point an extremist group. They had that up recently, and everybody was dunking on them for that over the last few days. The SPLC, I think, really crippled itself when they decided to go after gay marriage back at a time when you still had majority support, certainly among conservatives, for banning gay marriage. And they said, if you oppose gay marriage, you are also a hate group. So now you've got these nice Christian groups who are in the same category as the KKK. And once you expand the targets this much, at a certain point, people just stop paying attention, because they may take you seriously when they say, oh, like the Nazis are coming, and then according to my hate map, there's 30 chapters and you have to be freaking out about it. But if you have it right next to the Family Research Council, at a certain point, if you're on the right, you just stop paying attention. Even the cucks, even the establishment guys, even the conservative movement guys pining for the return of Reagan don't care what these groups have to say anymore. And they have nobody to blame but themselves.
The ADL is just famous for just going after the right. And you wonder, okay, so where are the Jewish groups that go after the left? Well, you don't even really need to officially have any. We saw after October 7th that people like Bill Ackman and others were going after Harvard and going after the universities. They are the ones who go after the leftists. They apparently they had a signal group that was coordinating to go after leftists. And this is what, when we talk about the kosher sandwich, this is literally what the kosher sandwich is you have one group that represents Israel that goes after the right, another group that represents Israel that goes after the left. And that's with them working, even if they're not working in tandem, it all works out the same way. So yeah, it's good to see. It's good to get a win from the ADL, but you also have to remember that this is a group that works hand in hand with Benjamin Netanyahu, and anyone who saw Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the United Nations knows that they're not. He's not backing down, and if Trump deciding to stand up against him, which who knows, what kind of pictures are out there or whatever, then I don't know. You just, if you take down, they have so many resources, people in, of course, so much wealth, that something like what the ADL is doing can just pop up. And the one good thing about the ADL was they always did it in the open. If they start doing this in the background, that could be even more dangerous for our people.
Well, there were some things that they were doing in the background. I think they actually did get caught and slap on the wrist for spying on people or going through people's records decades ago. I mean, if we are going to see continuation of these sorts of efforts, it's probably not going to be done by formal groups. it's going to be done by these sort of shadowy networks that it's going to be very difficult to keep tabs on. The ADL and the SPLC and groups like that, I mean, if you were a young professional working in any of these sorts of things, the real danger to you was as a media operation. I think their power has been somewhat limited there, although it's certainly not gone. But as far as some of the more direct actions they could take, those will probably continue. It's just not going to be done in the name of the ADL, and we're probably never going to even find out that they're even happening.
Every single time.
Thank you, Tucker. I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. We appreciate it.
So true.
Well, Pete, you mentioned Bibi Netanyahu here. Well, he was in the news again this week, and we actually have a clip of him that we're going to show next, talking about this very, very spooky new group that's coming up in the American scene. Let's listen in.
Christian influencers. Okay. You said, we talked about the woke right, and you said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane, they're loonies. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. Okay, and you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, you know, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok. TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. Exactly. Very good. And, you know, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. And I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now. We have to fight the fight, okay? To give direction to the Jewish people and give direction to our non-Jewish friends or those who could be our Jewish our friends. Are we going to succeed with everyone? No. Will there be a strong counterpart? Yes.
I mean, the chutzpah of this guy at the start of this, right? I mean, first of all, what I want to say first is it's always projection with these people every single time, man. He's talking about the vast network of NGOs and government money that is funding anti-Israel rhetoric. It's like, really? Really, dude? Yeah, that great big vast network of NGOs is really working against Israel's interests, pal. Huh? God, unbelievable to suggest something like that.
You know, I'll just bring this up again. It came out this week that they're paying TikTokers and people on Rumble $7,000 a video to promote propaganda for them. Just a reminder, that's your money that they're using to do that, to propagandize you and your neighbors and, you know, your relatives. And, you know, it always goes back to me when I hear stuff like that, wow, they're doing that. They're actually paying people and taking care of their people. And then you look on the right and you're like, where is anyone with that kind of money? And we have so many people with that kind of money willing to step up and do that, you know, so that we can do that, so that so many of the great people that we have that have to work a day job and could be doing this and pushing the message forward. But no, we don't have that. We have this, I mean, obviously grasping at straws, and I don't think people realize just how weak Israel is, how they're in everything they do is a panic. The whole thing with taking over TikTok and killing TikTok, something else can come up with that. It can come up with X, all of this stuff. I mean, they're in a panic. They know they've lost. They've lost the world except for this country. And slowly but surely, they're losing this country. So, 2 points. This is all panic. Other point, once again, where are the right wing billionaires willing to shell out money so that we can put out good propaganda too?
From the river to the sea,
I've never been
Israel
offered.
backstabbed me.
I always wonder about this because when you see these reports of these kinds of offers, and of course there have been many other times on social media where they say, so and so is getting offered however many thousands of dollars to say something nice about Israel, or fly over there, or do this, that, and the other thing. And I keep thinking to myself, like, who the hell are you people? Like, I've never had an offer like this in my entire life, and I don't know anyone personally who has. Now, maybe that's just because they know it would be a pointless gesture with me or anybody I know, I guess. But your point about where are the right-wing billionaires is well taken. I mean, this is one of the classic problems. If you look at college campuses, which if you had to pick one thing that you would want to go after, it would be that. If you look at the type of people who donate to their colleges, a lot of these right-wing billionaires, a lot of these right-wing millionaires who are really, if you want to talk about where the bulk of the donations are coming from, it's coming from these types of people. They'll donate tens of millions of dollars to their school for like the sports program or something, or they'll give it to their fraternity, or they'll give it in the name of a department they had attended 50 years ago, which is run by transsexuals or whatever else now. And you can't convince them not to do that. You can't tell them that, look, what you're doing is you're giving money to people who hate you, who want you dead, who want to take away the business you built, but they're doing it based on nostalgia. And one of the things, it may just be a generational thing. One of the unfortunate truths we just have to grapple with is that most people do not change their mind about anything after the age of 25. And so a lot of the people who do have this level of financial success, who have built businesses that could potentially sustain an entire right-wing movement of the sort that existed not that long ago. Even if you look at the original groups of the American conservative movement, the type of people who funded that, these types of people, in their brain, the country is still 80% white. The big problem is still the Soviet Union. The thing we have to worry about is the high income tax. I don't think they fundamentally understand what's happening right now. And I don't think they're going to learn until a few more decades pass and you have people who have a more varied media diet, shall we say. There was a study that just came out which showed that a record low of Americans trust the mainstream media and trust the facts that they're getting from the media. But of course, it was almost completely determined by generation. And the older you are, the more you trust the mainstream media. And
What it really
that includes the right wingers.
What it really tells you is that when it boils down to it, whether they have $10 in the bank or whether they have billions in the bank, if you carry if you have a leftist ideology, if that's who you are a revolutionary, and you are willing to do anything, include forking over millions and billions if you have to, in order to fund or move forward whatever revolution it is that you want. And when it comes down to it, right wingers have bought into conservatism. I need to conserve, and what if they come for me one day? Which is one of the most silly things. I mean, a billionaire worried about them coming for them. You can go anywhere. You can buy your way out of anything. And yeah, I think that's one of the leftists are revolutionaries to their core, and it doesn't matter how much money they have.
Yeah, 2 points on
the ideology. I'm sorry, go ahead.
2 points on both of what you gentlemen were saying. I mean, I think Well, one of the first ones about like patronage from billionaires or millionaires on the right. I think one of the issues that has plagued our scene for so long is that up until recently, it has remained almost exclusively an online affair. And I feel like a lot of people find it very difficult to fork out huge sums of money to people they've never really met in person. That's just like the temperament of people like as right wingers, right? I mean, there's been people who have grifted off the system for a long time, what have you, but as that is changing, events like ours, people are showing up to them. I do think that this is an issue that we are getting into a position where we could tackle more easily. It's much easier to forge a relationship with somebody who has disposable income and who can invest it in, whatever kind of endeavors that the OGC wants to get into, or any other organizations like ours. So I do think that's a step in the right direction. And again, why we keep stressing on each one of these streams, and how people are still in the audience at this point who aren't a member of one of our chapters yet is beyond me. They're getting updated almost every week at this point, with new chapters popping up across the country. So everyone should get interested in that. And then the other point about the media consumption and record low trust in the quote unquote mainstream media, right? I've basically just come to the point of where my boomer Fox News family member watchers, wherever I'm like around them, I try my absolute best to just basically idiot proof the ability for them to watch Tucker Carlson on their TV. Like, listen, you guys like Tucker, you guys used to listen to him all the time, right? When he was on Fox News. Well, listen, he's got his own show and there's no ads on it anymore. There's no commercials. And look, YouTube is just on your smart TV now. All you got to do is just click YouTube and look, I'll put Tucker right here and you guys can just watch any of his monologues. That's all you got to do, right? So I would recommend people start doing stuff like that, because you really just have to make it so easy for a lot of these Fox News watchers, because like I don't really think they're wed to a lot of these anchors like there used to be. I mean, like Mark Levin, I think is like the only really like, or maybe like Jesse Waters, like those are probably like the only two really, like old school monologuers that have been there for a long time at this point, and everybody likes Tucker. They used to watch him all the time. So I'd recommend people do that. See what you can do.
One of the TB88 in the chat mentioned Barry Weiss taking over at CBS News.
Oh, God,
they bought her blog for $200 million. There's a patronage we're fucking talking about, you cheap bastards. But think about this. Israel actually thinks by taking over CBS News, that's going to change anything.
Yeah.
They actually think people take CBS News seriously. This is how out of touch they are. And this is why they're going to lose.
Yeah. I mean, Netanyahu is one of those guys who hasn't changed his mind after 25. I mean, the idea that you can, it's just a question of buying up certain things, controlling certain platforms from the top down, and that's the way you can win public opinion back. It's just a question of acquisitions. That was a defensible point of view maybe 15 years ago, but you can't seriously believe that now, especially when you look at what happened in the United States over the last few years. And you look at the rise of alternative platforms, you look at the rise of, and you could say, okay, it's cucked, it's not good enough, it's whatever. But if you look at the rise of nationalist movements within Europe, despite open censorship from the top down, despite attacks from Antifa on the bottom level, despite universal condemnation from every other political party, and these things keep growing. You have to be flexible, and you have to use a multifaceted approach, and sometimes even a different contradictory approaches if you're trying to push a certain message. And the way Israel's been going about this is, frankly, the way it waged counterinsurgency in Gaza, which is just flatten everything and then hope for the best. And it's like, well, yeah, but now everybody can see what you're doing. Everybody is mad. You've lost everyone. And the only thing they can think of to do is to double down.
I mean, they already did this with acquiring. This is something that Cringe Walker has been pointing out recently this week about. They already did this with Facebook back, 5 or 6 years ago, and it just turned into complete boomer slap, and nobody uses it anymore. I mean, it could very easily become the same thing with TikTok. It's not completely sanitized. Nobody uses it anymore. It's like, oh, great, more people are going to go to Twitter. I mean, for all the issues and all the flack that we give Elon, and a lot of it is very rightly deserved. I mean, I think back to the great H-1B war of Christmas last year, right? But the fact that we do have the largest platform in the entire world that is more or less a free speech platform, certainly more than one it was in recent years, has a huge and profound effect on all of the other platforms where in order like to just compete, basically, they kind of have to dial back censorship. I mean, YouTube has been doing this ever since Elon took over Twitter. Definitely not to the degree that we would like, but it is a step in the right direction.
I think that we're going to see a lot of flailing, particularly from some of the less self-aware and less nimble politicians on the right, because and you even see this with Trump to some extent, although he shows at least a little bit of awareness. Trump will occasionally say things in a tone of baffled astonishment, like, wow, the Israel lobby used to be the biggest one. They used to dominate Congress. Now they don't. It's really incredible. He at least recognizes this, and he at least understands that something has happened. I think your average Republican congressman still doesn't understand that this shift is taking place within his own party, not just on the left. And they're just going to keep doubling down on these same slogans. It's sort of like when you hear a Republican politician in 2009 saying something like, we have to fight them there so we don't have to fight them here. And we're really going with this still. And I think that there's, as frustrating as President Trump can be, it never ceases to amaze me how little everybody else has learned, and how much of what happens within the ordinary Republican Party among the rank and file politicians really can be explained by just stupidity rather than malice. It may be a unique political institution in that regard, because usually I think it's malice, not stupidity. But I don't think that's the case when it comes to many normie conservative politicians.
My gut instinct probably would agree with you on that, to be honest, especially with my track record of associating with, various Republican politicians at the local level. I mean, a lot of them really just have zero philosophical backing whatsoever or historical understanding of either their movement or America in general. It very much is, I watch Fox News, I'm going to run for politics. And that's basically like the extent of their knowledge on these things.
Right. There's a whole series. I mean, this is a bit off what we were talking about, but it's what I know. There's a whole series of nonprofits and organizations in Northern Virginia that are sort of still surviving off the post-Cold War conservative movement, still repeating the same slogans, still pushing the same issues, still trapped in the same paradigms, and still operating in a political environment or using political tactics that don't really work with today's demographics. And on the college campuses, on new media, even just in pop culture, I mean, if you're looking around, it's so obvious that what's driving everything is the politics of race and identity and sexuality and tribe. And then the higher up you go in the conservative movement, the more you go into like a time warp of 1977, where it's not even that they're nostalgic for Reagan. It's like they're preparing for Reagan because Reagan hasn't even come yet. And we still have to freak out about some of the big government programs of the Great Society or something. We just don't have a mainstream political expression that even touches on any of the things we care about, aside from MAGA, unfortunately. And MAGA is as incoherent and confusing and self-contradictory as anything is. But I mean, it is the best that we've got. And it's also been the dominating force in American politics for basically a decade now. So there's clearly something there. It's just, we're at the point now where I think we're all asking what comes next. And I haven't heard any good answers.
Very good point. I mean, we do have some very breaking news that we could touch on in a moment, but I do want to tap into one story because it dovetails nicely into what you were talking about right there, Mr. DeAnna. So this topic about, identity politics as it relates to, what is an American, who's this country actually for, addressing, demographic issues and other problems that, Reagan era conservatives just have no tools to equip with, right? One of the people I really want to focus on this week, because this woman's been horrible for a very long time, but she's gone out of her way in the last couple of weeks, really since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This was kind of like predictable in the sense of you thought that a lot of these, left to whites were just going to be totally incapable of controlling themselves with some of the rhetoric. I mean, Ilhan Omar was one of the very first mainstream Democrats I saw to immediately start labeling Charlie Kirk. Basically, he deserved it. He was a hateful rhetoric. He said hateful things. He should not be remembered. He should be thrown to the dustbin of history, all this kind of shit, right? Well, this is her talking on a podcast earlier this week. Let's listen in.
The idea that this is a white nation that needs to be preserved is a fascinatingly disgusting view, because this country is one for the many.
She doesn't even, oh God, she doesn't even know one for the many. She doesn't even know like what that refers to. I mean, I did the last show I did actually was about her comments on this and her comments on some other things too. And I mean, we have to confront a brutal truth here, which is that we're all just kind of kidding ourselves, aren't we? Unless these people go. And I don't just mean her, and I don't just mean because, look, we got her on immigration fraud because she married her brother or whatever. It's like, no, like her whole quote unquote community needs to go. They all need to go, all of them. And I don't care if they're citizens or not, because they don't consider themselves American, and they're not American in any real way. But if we're unwilling to do that, and if we can't do that, and let's face it, what I'm talking about now is so outside the Overton window that you're just kind of wish casting, the demographics are already baked in the cake. And then at that point, you're talking about, what does America even mean when you're a white minority, something akin to the Afrikaners in South Africa? Like, what does it mean to be a South African patriot if you're white? I mean, that's the situation we're moving toward, because resentful parasites like this are going to constitute 99% of the Congress in a much shorter time than I think people realize.
I mean, it's just so obvious that this is the next big issue with whatever we want to call the right-wing coalition, MAGA or whatever. I mean, the discussion is already here, right? We're talking about the largest mass deportation operation in history, right? Well, it's like, why isn't Ilhan Omar and all of her ilk considered under that banner of mass deportations in history, right? It's like, okay, well, we got to get rid of the illegal immigrants. It's like, well, okay, that's only part of the problem. I mean, we've all stressed this many times, but the same problems with illegal immigration are the same problems with legal immigration. There is no way that you could possibly tell me that Ilhan Omar, or any other Somalian for that matter, is an American. You're not. Plain and simple. You're a paperwork American, as Orrin McIntyre's been calling these people, which, is fine. It's a language vector we could use to address this issue. But this is where this is going. We can't live in a society where this woman, who wasn't born in the United States, has no connection to the history of the United States, views this country as an economic zone to make her and her co-ethnics, have a better life, is the quote that we're always throwing at each other, and has done nothing but since when she arrived here to destroy the nation, for which has built up and accumulated this vast wealth and all the political institutions that are actually protecting her from what would she be in her home country? Like a sex slave, basically? Like that's what she would be.
Oh, no. I mean, that's what's kind of messed up, is like her father was basically a warlord. And
oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's not, you see this with a lot of these so-called refugees. And you also see this, frankly, with Africans from Africa, I mean, as opposed to descendants of American slaves, where you have these programs that are clearly designed for the descendants of American slaves. I mean, obviously I'd want to get rid of them too, but at least you can understand like why they exist. And then you'll have the privileged child of African politicians come to America and immediately receive affirmative action because of their race. It's like, well, what are we doing here? I mean, these people are coming from a position of privilege already above most Americans. And then once here, they are immediately treated better than most Americans. And this is our own government doing this to us. Now, at some point, we have to grapple with this. And if we can't even define who an American is aside from paperwork, there's really not that much that we can do.
I mean, the other thing about this woman is that she's just such the perfect avatar for starting this conversation, just much because of the same reasons you were listing earlier, right? I mean, yes, she should be gotten rid of and deported from this country because she's not an American, not because she committed immigration fraud and married her brother. But if we are to start going down this route of, opening this discussion out into the wider public and getting it into the Overton window, she's the perfect avatar for this. It's like, okay, she's dancing on the grave of Charlie Kirk. She openly engaged in immigration fraud. She's openly engaged in other forms of fraud in her own community with her co-ethnics to steal money from the United States. Why is this woman here? Why is she not denaturalized? And why is she not deported? And why hasn't Stephen Miller done this yesterday?
The idea that you can move to another nation and then start talking about how, first of all, that nation's evil, it has an evil history, everything must be changed. I mean, it just goes to show it's a perfect reflection of modernity. I mean, try to do that in any European nation, 500 years ago, 600 years ago. I mean, we have, yes, our problems seem to be very easy. It's like, get these people out. But we have an existential problem. We have a problem that there are a lot of people who voted for Trump who will look at her and look at her paperwork and, be like, well, no, she's a citizen. She came here the right way. She didn't sneak over the border. She's a citizen. And they'll just be like, well, she has freedom of speech to say what she wants. Well, no, she got elected. And she got elected, and she over and over says, I didn't get elected to serve the American people. I got elected to serve my people. Okay. Now, there's another group that has people, at least they're smart enough not to say it that explicitly. So they get their Shabbos goys to do it, like, Ted Cruz and other ones who say, and Nikki Haley, who are like, yeah, we got elected for Israel. That's it. That's why we're here. I had somebody talking about that on Facebook today, and I'm like, look, this isn't dual loyalty at this point. I'd be happy with dual loyalty. These people don't have loyalty anymore. You remember a year ago, I asked Congressman Don Bacon on Twitter if one country had to be blown off the map, Israel or the United States, and he said, read the book of Revelations and get back to me.
Yeah. I mean, this is one thing that I worked for a long time was WorldNet Daily. Now, if you want to go ancient conservative history, that was like one of the first right-wing news websites. And Joseph Farah was a pretty important guy in movement conservatism. Ghost wrote Rush Limbaugh's books and worked with all these other figures. I mean, but he was also one of the first who promoted Hal Lindsey, or I think he was one of the guys who helped him out later. Hal Lindsey, I think, really helped convert him as far as religious views goes. And so he got into this sort of left behind apocalyptic Christian Zionism thing. And so right from the beginning, right-wing populism sort of had that baked into it. And I remember when I was working there, and I don't regret working there. There were a lot of good things that got done. If you remember, like Colin Flaherty, one of the guys who first promoted a lot of these black on white crimes, we were able to get his book published and do things like that. Helped Phil Schlafly endorse Trump back in 2016. I mean, these were things we couldn't have done otherwise. But I remember talking to somebody at the company about they were going on about end time stuff, and I was raised Catholic. I mean, to me, evangelical Protestants or even Messianic Jews are sort of a diverse, exotic thing that you don't really encounter in the wild, at least not till I was an adult. And I remember them saying, well, you have to remember, Kev, that after the rapture, the Bible doesn't mention America. And so therefore, America is not really the most important nation to God. And I mean, I was already pagan at that point, but if I hadn't been, I think that might have like done it for me then and there. It's insane to have a right-wing movement, a self-conscious right-wing movement, a spiritual movement, a religious movement that commands far more money and numbers and fanaticism than anybody on our side does right now, aside maybe from Trump itself. And they fundamentally do not believe that they live in the most important country or that they should care about their own country the most. I mean, there's no coexistence possible with that at this point. It just has to be stepped over.
I mean,
it's funny. It's funny because I always talk about how Israel was informed for all the Jews to go there. It's basically, if you want to be able to commit violence on a mass scale, you have to have a state, because a state is the only one that can have legitimate violence on a mass scale. So you're always going to have to deal with this diaspora. And it seems like a bunch of other groups figured out that scam of we're going to send a diaspora into the richest and the best country, that has ever existed. And we're just going to rape it. And that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, it's just some of these other groups don't know how to do it with the kind of subtlety.
Yeah,
as you
really.
point
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
It's like the Indians are trying to do the same playbook, but they can't help but be like, look what we're doing. And so everybody's it's like, wait a minute.
Has there been a single group that has dropped the ball in a faster period than the Indians, man?
It's all gone downhill from when that one dude, that failed comedian, did that movie, The Problem with Apu. That single, ever since they dropped Apu from The Simpsons, the stereotype overnight went from like vaguely lovable convenience store clerk who might try to rip you off like a quarter here and there, but is hardworking, whatever else, like an entire subcontinent of scamsters and people coming to steal your country.
Do not redeem. Yeah. Yep, there we go. The train will never not be funny. I mean, I wonder if like one of the ways you can, again, like one of these like meme pathogens you might be able to use to get this conversation through to like Fox News boomers or some of these like Trump people who think like, oh, well, just because you have the sheet of paper means you're an American. It's like, Ilhan Omar saying she's an American is just like a troon saying that like, you're a woman. This woman's like a trans American, right? This is ridiculous. I don't care what the fucking piece of paper calls you, right? You're just not. We all know this. Anyway, well, it doesn't stop there with just Ilhan Omar. I mentioned her co-ethnics, but here's a report coming from Minnesota, which I guess is just firmly cemented at this point is like one of the worst states in the entire country at this point. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, hearing Andrew Isker talk about it and everything, but man, oh man. So this is coming from Breitbart. Immigrants in Minneapolis committing fraud at such an astronomical rate it would shock you, including one obtaining a fake death certificate from Kenya for $100 to prove he was no longer married. A survey in Minneapolis showed that almost 50% of migrant households have cheated the immigration system in one way or another. Just,
I mean, that's actually like fewer than I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, well, everybody knows the story that's been coming out recently as well, where I think it was 11 Somalis were just finally indicted on the 2020 COVID scam with all the funding that was going to autistic children. And they were just spamming the system because, oh, shocker, if you're coming from 50 IQ Somalia, your kids are going to do shitty on the tests. So it's like, oh, wow, we're going to claim you're autistic and steal a bunch of money from the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, if you looked at, this was another thing we just did on the show. It should be coming out an hour or two. We looked at the statistics for autism in the state, and lo and behold, they just skyrocket once you get this new population transfer. And do Somalis have some sacred religious tradition of feeding their babies Tylenol? No. Well, in that case, it's probably a question of welfare fraud, and it's probably a question of setting up these clinics where you're going to get paid extra just for diagnosing, quote unquote, people with this. And there's also a big investigation going on right now in that state about Medicare fraud and about these fake sorts of clinics. And this is happening in other places too. It's happening in Maine. It's happening in just about anywhere where these people go. Before VDare.com got shut down, it was also one of the most common things that we would cover is Medicare and Medicaid fraud, where you would have these doctors, usually one paperwork American, one foreign national, working together, where they would be submitting these fake claims for medical procedures that didn't actually happen, like in the pilot episode of The Sopranos, except it's not Italians doing this. It's some Mustafa Sharif or whatever else. And this is happening in just about every mid-tier city you can think of. And how many of these do we not even find out about?
I mean, again, it's just what kind of country do we want to have, right? I mean,
Any
okay.
kind of country at this point.
Yeah, really, right? Well, it's just we have to have a very, very serious discussion of who we want to live with and what is acceptable and unacceptable to have for people that we're just by our own good graces allowing to head into this country. I mean, Stephen Miller made the announcement this week of that new position, Defenders of the Homeland, position, where basically they're trying to hire on as many people as possible to interview potential immigration applicants into the United States. It's like, I mean, should we be accepting anybody at this point? I mean, how about just a total moratorium ban on all immigration and deportation of 100 million people? Yeah, exactly. That's a good point as well. No, they've noticed they've interestingly been absent from the news the last couple of months. So I don't know how that's been progressing, but we should be having a lot of those people into our country.
I mean, that's one of the things we should be talking about in terms of moving the ball forward, because everything that has been done, except for the Afrikaners, I guess, has really been fundamentally defensive or slowing the bleeding. And the biggest accomplishment, of course, is more or less stopping illegal immigration at the southern border, record low number of border crossings and whatever else. I mean, I don't think President Trump gets enough credit for just solving that problem and destroying forever the idea that the only way you can control the border is by passing some kind of amnesty. I mean, remember, it was Republicans who were trying to sabotage the campaign by going that Langford out of Oklahoma, pushing that bill. Now that's not even a talking point anymore, but we're still on the road to demographic destruction. And at the end of the day, it is all downstream of demographics and identity. And what we really should be thinking about is if Europe cannot be pressured directly to lighten up on some of these speech restrictions, I think we should use the same tactic with something like the United Kingdom that we use with South Africa, which is basically white Englishmen get to claim asylum in the United States. They get to be refugees. We get to fly them over here. They get to say, look, we're being arrested for our Facebook posts. Our children are being attacked by these Muslims that are brought in and put up in fancy hotels paid for by the taxpayers. We can't do this anymore. And we bring them here. And not only would that give us some much needed demographic reinforcements, not only would that bring in the one stock of people that arguably belongs here more than anyone, but it would also be a way of putting real pressure on the British government to reverse course. Because fundamentally, I don't think that if we look at the next 20, 30 years, there's a situation where part of the West gets saved and the rest of it just sort of collapses. France gets saved, Germany doesn't, that kind of thing. Europe gets saved and America doesn't. I think it is going to be all or nothing.
Yeah, and people want to ask questions like, "Oh, who's an American? What's you fucking know."
Yeah, it's like Sam Hyde said. We all know.
You just know. It's like when you take into consideration that probably 90 to 95% of people can't understand politics, don't understand politics, will always sound like a retard when they're discussing politics. You just have to take it once if they love it here, don't want it to change, don't want to import their fucking whole, if they're from somewhere else, they don't want to import you know who it is. This isn't difficult. The people who don't belong here are telling us they don't belong here. You don't have to worry about your fucking neighbor who voted Democrat a few times. That's just America. That's just what we've dealt with for a very fucking long time.
I really do love that statement people make all the time, that if you're walking down the street and somebody points to a random person and says, that guy has to go back, and if you can immediately think of a country in your brain, there's your test. Right there. If I point to Pete and I can't think of a country in my brain, that man's an American. Very simple.
Yeah, one's reminded of a certain excerpt where you see somebody walking down the street and you ask yourself, is this an American? And you know if it's an American or not. And as he points out, I mean, they'll tell you that they're not American. They will tell you that they don't care about the country, that they actively wish destruction upon it. I mean, this is the most remarkable thing that's been happening. I mean, to your point, how certain groups now just don't seem to have the subtlety that others might have. they are not being shy about what they're here for and what they think of us and what they regard as their country and their identity. So why do we have to keep playing these games? This is a name, hopefully, you guys won't recognize, but there was a writer for National Review. He might still be writing for him, Jay Nordlinger. And I used to hate him because I think he's probably the worst writer in America. But he had said something when Ilhan Omar, this is a few years back, posted something about, oh, I'm so proud to be a Somali refugee, and now I'm going to be in Congress and everything else. And he said, I don't know anything about this person. Her politics, I bet, are different than mine. But this is classically American. Long may it be. And this is your National Review conservatism. And we can say, okay, this is irrelevant. These people don't really have a constituency anymore. They arguably haven't since 2016. But that may be a bit of a cope, because when you get out there and you look at the type of normal person who is getting elected as a Republican on your city council, in Congress and state legislatures and in boards of ed, in the places where you can realistically do something, far too many are still operating with this mindset. And again, I think for them, it's not malice. I think it is naivete and stupidity.
Yeah, more wisdom coming from National Review, the country's #1 paleontology magazine. All right. Carrying on, gents. We're not done with the immigrant talk. This one was just out of this world insane this week, coming from California. I could not believe this when I saw this. I was like, this has to be fake. There's just no way that this could have possibly happened. So hundreds of no name given limited term CDLs and private files given to California drivers. Just no name given on.
I saw people trying to defend this too. I saw like liberals being like, well, you see, stupid, you need to educate yourself that in other countries, they may not have a given name. So therefore, that's all this means. And it's like, all right, well, if they don't have a given name, what is the point of an ID? Like, why are they here? And what the fact that I have to know about this strange folkway, like, why don't I get to drop a neutron bomb on where you live just because you told me about that? Like, that would be a moderate response to just knowing this information.
Yeah, I mean,
and assuming it's even real, which it's probably not.
Yeah, the excuse of you having a Star Wars name doesn't mean you're not allowed to have an ID in my country, especially when
but they don't even have Star Wars names. They just have, like, that's what we're being told, that they just don't have any indication at all. It's like, one of these primitive tribes that hasn't figured out that there's a number that comes after 4. I mean, these people apparently haven't figured out that you can use names to distinguish one person from another.
It's so insane. I mean,
if you have a state that's doing this, fine, do it. They can't leave the state. You know that whole thing where Illinois is always complaining that all the guns in South Central are coming from Wisconsin because Wisconsin has or surrounding states and everything. So let's build some fucking walls around the states. Okay, I was calling for that before frigging COVID. That was like at the beginning of 2020. That was my whole thing. We need to build walls around the states, and you need to friggin' file to for entry in order to come into another state. I mean, how would anyone? How would any governor? How would any politician in it seems like one of these is Utah too. Fucking wonderful. Why would you let one of these come into your state? You freaking bazooka them the truck off the friggin' road if it tried to come into a state with this.
No, they just do it themselves.
I mean, this is a libertarian's wet dream too, because they hate driver's licenses, and they probably think that's my government name. That's the straw man. Like these friggin' sovereign citizen scumbags.
The Moors are going to take over the truck driving thing from the Indians. They've got an open path to taking the whole thing now.
It's just okay. We were just given this whole spiel over the last couple of years how everyone needs to switch over to real IDs so Americans can be safe to either fly their planes or rather get on an airline at the TSA checkpoints or what have you. And now we just openly have foreigners in this country who somehow get these magical real IDs and there's not even a fucking name on it. And then what's even worse, we're just going to give you free access to our roads and drive multi-ton vehicles where you can just flatten Americans like pancakes on the side of the road. It's like,
Of course, in that big one that just happened in Florida that everybody was talking about, it turned out that there wasn't a single American involved in any of it. It was
yeah,
three
it was-
Haitians
it
who
was a
got.
Haitian family. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I don't think they were. Was it a family or was it just three Haitians in a car? They had different last names. I mean, maybe they were a family. I don't know. But you're seeing this too. You remember when there was the Mexican Navy sent a boat up for some stupid celebration and they somehow managed to crash into a bridge in New York City. And so the thing is falling down. You've got, the Mexican flag falling and the sailors all flopping all over the place and falling into the river. You've got women in hijabs running around on the shore. You've got like blacks jumping up and down. There's not a single person who I would regard as a countryman anywhere in this video. And you're just seeing this over and over and over again with a lot more of these things where it's not that it looks like a foreign country, or it's not like, oh, this doesn't feel like America anymore. It's that there are huge parts of the country that are just not part of the country in any real sense. And the people who live there don't consider themselves part of the country in any real sense. And you wonder what will happen to this country when you're hit with a real crisis, when you're hit with a real disaster, because you don't have that feeling of solidarity anymore. I mean, to some extent, we already know this, because when red state America gets hit by a natural disaster, like say what happened with Western North Carolina, the response from the great and the good is not sympathy. It's not charity drives. It's basically mockery and saying that they deserve it because they don't believe enough in climate change.
I'm going to be honest, when that Mexican boat hit and all those Mexicans were falling off the rafts and everything, I mean, the only thing that I could think was,
I'm going to come.
Thank you for that. I mean, to say something maybe a bit more depressing, one of the things that we've been noticing over the last couple days are these prominent left-wing influencers who had certain views on 9/11, basically saying America had it coming, that people didn't have the right to feel bad about Americans dying. Ta-Nehisi Coates said that, of course, in his book, that there was no such thing as an innocent American, or he couldn't view Americans as innocent. Ilhan Omar, some people did something. Hassan Piker, of course, famously saying that they had it coming. And I remember, especially being from North Jersey, the feeling that when New York City was hit, that it wasn't just, oh, my country had been hit, but it was my city. Like the feeling of territorial ownership was very real and very visceral. And I think a lot of people around the country felt that way, even those who don't particularly like New York City or have any attachment to it. Now, I mean, let's be honest, when you see the protests in, say, something like Los Angeles with all the flags, and you see these elected officials in what used to be considered great American cities more or less openly saying, we are not part of the country. Our communities are these foreigners. They have the right to be exempt from your laws because this is all stolen land anyway. What kind of feeling of solidarity is possible with people like that, even under the most dire circumstances? If something did happen, how could you respond with anything other than indifference at best?
I mean, this was really put to the forefront in the last 3 weeks when, doctors, nurses, teachers, Secret Service members, people who flip your burgers, were just openly dancing on the grave of one of the most visceral assassinations since JFK. Oh,
yeah. I mean, this is a true question too. Is if you look at the types of people who were celebrating, if you wanted to go, and again, it's pretty hard to quantify this, but I guess you could if you wanted to go through it. It would just be very time consuming. But typically, it was a woman. And if you look at the kind of professions of people who are being doxxed, it's nurses, it's teachers, it's HR people, it's executives to some extent. It's basically, especially with nurses and teachers and health aides, it's the people who you are most reliant on in vulnerable moments. It's the people who basically have your life in their hands when you're going under for anesthesia for surgery or something like that. And this is what these people think of you. Now, we got a glimpse of that during COVID. But I mean, you could argue that was colored by fear or paranoia or misunderstanding. There's none of that now. It's just, yeah, these people want you dead and they're walking around and you're surrounded by them every day. And you just have to go through everyday life knowing that if somebody blew your head off in front of your family, about 30% of the people surrounding you, probably the most educated and the people with the best jobs and the best credentials, those are going to be the ones to cheer, and they're not going to suffer any consequences from it.
Yeah, I think some people know that last week I had to have an emergency procedure done, sort of invasive, and I was never so happy to, I mean, I would have I was in so much pain, I would have taken anyone at the point, but I wasn't never so happy to know that the doctor who did it had a gigantic Trump flag in his office.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's not just going to like deliberately kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that point that people have said for a while in the last couple of years. It's like, yeah, take the organ donor tab off of your licenses, because there's some really, really sketchy deals that are going on with that. I mean, speaking of license in this case, because we were just talking about driver's licenses, but I mean, to swing things back to the actual topic at hand here. I mean, Arkansas, I think, was the state that announced recently that they're not going to accept licenses from these other states, that just hand them out to anybody. I might be misremembering that, which state it was. Oh no, it was Florida. I think it was Florida that announced it, right? I mean, it's just what needs to be done at this point, right? I mean, I don't really know what the Trump administration could do to say, like, oh, California, you can't, do these with your licenses anymore. But other states are just going to have to do stuff like this, where no, we're not accepting your driver's license from this state that just openly gives it to literally anybody who walks over the border. Well, that's pretty much the only way you're going to have to be able to deal with this.
So many of the problems that we're facing now, the way the system is set up makes us more or less incapable of taking productive action or solving them in any realistic way. I mean, more broadly, that's what you're saying, but I mean, if you look at the immigration question, I mean, 9 months to deport one guy who the whole government basically was trying to go after. And you're seeing this, they want to do that with basically the tens of millions of people in this country. And I try to be pragmatic as far as politics goes, because people will say, like, oh, well, don't vote for this guy, don't support this guy, don't do anything. And it's like, all right, well, you're still paying your taxes, so you're still supporting your enemies, you're still being ruled. I don't think anybody cares whether you participate in the political system or not. They just care about whether you're paying your taxes and you do what you're told. And of course, everybody does, including quote unquote dissidents. But at the same time, I think it's fundamentally true that there's no practical solution possible within the system, because the system has basically been deliberately set up to prevent anything from getting done. And so we're all just sort of kicking the can down the road, waiting for something to happen, which, if you look at history, inevitably something has to, but the chutney says nothing ever happens.
This is why we all get so upset about, like, the only solution is you just cut this Gordian knot, and that's why
doing
every
big things
day
is easier than doing small things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's just every day, people just get more and more upset with the Trump administration on a number of things. I mean, the same topic about, number of deportations and everything, and how long it took to deport one MS-13 guy that the Democrat media decided to really cling on to. I mean, it revolves around the whole thing. I got in an argument with Mystery Grove on Twitter this week about this, but he was trying to pull everybody back from chimping out at the Trump administration for putting that one ICE guy on leave for slightly pushing down that one, like, female reporter that was in, like, an ICE building in New York or what have you. I mean, the guy ended up getting reinstated, but, like, I'm just arguing with Mystery Grove. I'm like, dude, like, the fact that the instinct from everybody on the team was to, like, buy into the leftist frame here and be like, oh, well, we got to put this guy on leave because he was slightly forceful with, one person who was on standby. It's like, dude, do you have any idea what it's going to take to deport all the people that actually need to be deported in this country? And you're getting hung up over, like, an ICE agent just, by lightly pushing somebody. I mean, it's already a huge ask to get these guys to sign up by their tens of thousands to join this organization. I mean, they're getting literally doxxed by Democrat governors in this point, with, like, Gavin Newsom passing these anti-masking laws for law enforcement people, which we all know is just for their activists to find these people and basically shoot them. Same difference with what's been going on with Charlie Kirk and everything. And it's like, the first instinct isn't to just be 100% behind your guys in all times and all places. It's just not a good sign, man. I mean, the buck has to stop with somebody, right? I I mean, and maybe it's not fair that the Trump administration is being, unnecessarily maligned for what was the action of one of these like lesser, regional ICE office people. But again, man, just at the end of the day, I find it a lot. I find it much, much harder as the days go by to give this administration more leeway on some of these like really big issues, man. It's just like we got to get serious. People need to start acting serious.
Yeah. And time is running out. I mean, and so much of what the Trump administration is doing makes sense and is productive and is very good if you're going to be in charge for 20 years. But they're not going to be in charge for 20 years. It's extremely doubtful that they'll have freedom to act for another year, basically. And the lack of seriousness, I think, that the administration has approached a number of issues, even though, and I hasten to point this out, it's clearly the best presidency of my lifetime, and I'm older than just about everybody.
Agreed.
And also, and it's also way better. Like, it's not even close to the first term. It's so much better than the first term. It doesn't even belong in the same sentence. But it's not enough. And the danger that we're in is we're in a situation now where unless you solve the whole problem and unless you put yourself in a position where they cannot retaliate against you, what's coming is going to be so much worse even than what Biden did. Even with the deplatforming, even with the FBI going after dissidents and going after even normal conservatives and pro-lifers and people like that, people don't understand that the way the UK is now, the way that Germany is now, is in many cases the best case scenario. What could be coming for us is much, much worse. And the Democratic Party is going to be dominated by AOC and Mandami and these democratic socialists who are animated, let's just call it for what it is, purely by anti-white racial grievances. And that is enough to win a permanent national majority. And you're not going to be able to fight that with rhetoric about limited government or controlling the debt or any of these things. I just don't care about any of these issues anymore. We don't have time to talk about them. They weren't solved 30 years ago, and that was probably the last chance we could have solved these problems within the existing system.
I mean, that really just summarizes it perfectly, right? It's just, we talk about it all the time. People not knowing what time it is. I mean, it really is just, we're in the end game. We're literally playing for keeps. I mean, and it just seems like we're just going to have to deal with more and more political assassinations and leftist violence until eventually somebody finally sits down and thinks, I really don't think these leftists are going to stop, guys. I guess we're going to have to do something real. I hope and pray that it doesn't require another, 10 of hundreds or even thousands of corpses piling up at the feet of these people for them to finally figure out what time it is. If they thought that, taking Donald Trump for $50 million for what was essentially just a, filing error in New York, think they were going to stop there, man? Anyway.
No, I'm certainly, I mean, hell, I used to work for an organization on the right that was around for a very long time that basically was taken down via political persecution. And you're going to be able to do that with just about anything. I mean, the historic role of government throughout history, going back to, if you want to read biographies of Alexander the Great or whatever else, I mean, they had court systems then too, but the reason these things existed was basically to destroy political enemies. That's why you have a legal system. That's what it fundamentally is about. It's not even about protecting property. It's about protecting the political order. And if you have people who have sufficient will and sufficient fanaticism and sufficient moral flexibility, you can basically do whatever you want. And I mean, just to give one quick example, if you look at how critical race theory has infiltrated the legal profession, it is explicitly argued that you should not be bound by the letter of the law. You should not be bound by precedent or legal tradition because these things are racist. And therefore, in the interest of justice, you are allowed to decree alternative outcomes that are more in line with non-Western perspectives, which is, of course, just another way of saying there's no such thing as law and you can just do whatever you want. But how are you going to get rid of some black woman judge who believes this? How are you going to lecture an electorate that is 80% non-white that they shouldn't do this and actually they need to go read the Constitution or Blackstone or something like that? I mean, this is the world we're going to be in.
Yep, 100%. Well, let's move on to a breaking news story that has actually just happened since we've been going live here. So we're gonna insert an emergency one into the broadcast tonight. So breaking news: White House notifies Congress the United States is now involved in a non-international armed conflict with drug cartels. So, I mean, it seems like we are finally getting an answer with the executive orders declaring the drug cartels as terrorist organizations. We've already seen a little bit of prelude to this with the Trump administration using drone strikes to blow up various drug runner boats in the middle of the Caribbean, and somehow Rand Paul being on the side of the drug runners, as always. But let's ignore that for a moment. So, well, this is certainly interesting, I would say. So, I mean, right away, the first thing that sticks out to me is that it should be easier than ever to deport people. You catch a single person with any amount of drugs, you can immediately accuse them of being in a drug cartel, international terrorist organization. You're out.
Well, I
Do you
guess
think
the question, I'll be brief. You can jump in, Kevin. Non-international. I guess that's what people are honing in on and focusing on and saying what exactly does that mean? Because you mentioned blowing up boats and everything. It's supposed to be Venezuela. I mean, and I think we're all smart enough to know that this whole war with Venezuela is basically a proxy war with China at this point. So I'm trying to figure out what this non-international armed conflict with drug cartels means. I mean, does that just mean that it's open season in American cities and anywhere in America?
Well, you wonder if it's some sort of required legal declaration that opens up the rules of engagement with these federal troops that they're going to be sending into places, including Memphis, I think, is the next one on the list, which is good because it's a red state. So that gives you a lot more flexibility. There's not really much that the city itself can do about it, unlike in Chicago. I think that the idea of treating the drug war as a real war, I mean, this goes back even during the Clinton years, they would talk about this. Remember, we had drug czars and all the rest of it. It's clearly called for in the sense that it's a national security challenge, and this is at the root of a lot of the problems we face. But these sorts of declarations and these sorts of announcements don't really do anything until we actually have local officials, including DAs and blue city juries, that are willing to punish these guys once they're caught. And I don't think that we do. I mean, you would have to do what Trump, again, has spoken about in the past, but hasn't really carried out, which basically, if you're handling a certain amount of drugs, you handle it the way Singapore handles it. It's just mandatory execution, and that's that. But then you'd have to be willing to face down the tears of all these people. You'd have to be willing to face down the Pope. You'd have to be willing to face down all these other people who are saying that this is not who we are. Well, if this is not who we are, then drive anywhere in rural America, fellas, and the only shops that you're going to see that are springing up are Kratom and vape shops. And I promise you, those things aren't the only things they're dealing.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's just a piece of it's just a piece of paper until somebody actually does something with it.
Yeah. The idea that we've put up with this for this long, where there are sections of the country, Camden, New Jersey, south side of Chicago, you know, parts of Atlanta that you just don't go. There are parts of this country where it's like, no, I'm a civilized white person, and there's no way I'm going to this place. The fact that we have that is, I think it stopped being embarrassing. I don't even know if it was ever embarrassing, but we should be embarrassed by that. We do not have order. And that's all, for those of us who were libertarians at one time, we would love to see liberty. Well, you can't have liberty without order. Order doesn't come out of chaos, and what you have is chaos now. And then you have to, of course, have the conversation about, well, who's fit for quote unquote liberty, the kind of liberty that a libertarian would talk about. And if this is what it takes, I mean, how bad? How much worse can it can only get worse, right? Do you think the government's going to make it worse? That's another thing about being a libertarian. A libertarian will tell you that they're much more worried about state violence than they are private violence. But when it comes right down to it, what is 99.9% of the violence in this country, in any civilization, is going to be private. It's not the state that's breaking into your house at night. It's not the state that's sticking you up when you go to the city and putting a gun in your face. That's not how that works. So the fact that we don't have order, we need to start somewhere. Will it work? Who the hell knows? Probably not. But I mean, at least you can say you're trying. At least maybe there are some areas to get cleaned up. But I mean, that's just,
Oh, Memphis would be a good place to start.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we have a
Memphis is a
model.
great
We have a
town.
model though of how this could play out, which is of course Bukele in El Salvador. But what was he able to do? He was able to break the judiciary, and in some ways, because the country was chaotic, because it didn't have civil society, which we're told is some great thing, but at this point, I think does more harm than good. Because they didn't have all these different organizations and complicated legal structures and everything else, and he was able to just go in there and do it. He was able to fix the problem. We cannot do that unless we basically destroy the independent judiciary, because there's no way to bring these groups to heel within the existing system. The one thing that you can do, and you have seen this in DC, and it's worth doing, which is basically that you have these people there, these soldiers or these federal officers or whatever else, and they're essentially a sort of community watch where just their mere presence prevents a certain amount of crime. That is true. That will work, but is that sustainable over the long term? No. And even something like homicide clearance rates are remarkably low in a lot of these major cities. And I think part of it is just because a lot of cops, after maybe an idealistic beginning, throw in the towel and just say, what's the point?
Yeah, probably a very good point on that one for sure. Well, I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what actually comes from this one. But I can think of 1,000,001 ways how this order right here could be used for the advantage of people like us and all of heritage Americans. We'll see if the Trump administration actually uses it in that direction. But, we can only hope, right? Moving on, all right. Our one piece of very, very good news tonight, which everyone should be taking a victory lap around, and particularly two people, Mr. Oren McIntyre and Mr. Academic Agent, deserve quite a bit of praise for this one, is the Community Relations Service, the CRS. We talked about this a bit on our show previously, but it is official now. The CRS is officially defunded. They have lost $24 million of their funding. They will not be in business for next year. This, of course, is the organization that was sent to any number of, racial attacks against a white person in the United States. And these people would show up and say, oh, be sure to address the family and make sure they don't look back in anger or discuss hate or any such details like this. So top marks all around. Oren McIntyre and AA were on top of the stuff many months ago. Oren McIntyre himself actually brought this up, for the administration. He said on his show that he was called by people who were made aware of this. And yes, so an enemy castle has been taken and shut down. So don't let anyone tell you that posting and the things that we do online does not have effect on anything, because here is a prime example of something like this. We just saved $24 million from the government, and more importantly, a horrible anti-white organization that has been enshrined in the Civil Rights Act for years is finally put to rest. So everyone should have a round of applause. If anyone posted on this one, if anyone tagged the administration in this, pat yourself on the back.
Well, I talked to Oren yesterday, 2 days ago, when the word came down, and I said, "Is this confirmed?" And he said, "Good question. I'll make sure to confirm." So basically, what happened is, because it would take an amending of the Civil Rights Act or the repeal of the Civil Rights Act completely, which I'm sure there's no one on this call or listening would would be opposed to. He said from what it looks like is the organization is restructured to be folded into the civil rights division. So technically it'll still meet its statutory requirements, but there will no longer be a separate CRS with its own personnel and initiatives. So basically the way the CRS was structured, I think we know, those of us who listened to AA and Orrin talk about it, was completely independent. Even though it was part of the Civil Rights Act, it was they could just do whatever it wanted. So now that it's been folded into the Civil Rights Division itself, it can't do what it wants, and they can completely defund anybody who's in it, because they can basically fire anyone who's in it, and it still exists on paper. It just doesn't have, no one can use it directly without whoever's running the Civil Rights Division. I forget what that woman's name is. And I don't know if anyone saw, I think she had a tweet.
Harmeet Dillon.
Yeah, she retweeted and retweeted the tweet that announced that what had happened to it, and she just retweeted it and said bye. So at least until the next administration.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It'd be very easy to be white-pilled if any of these things were being imposed for the long term. But I mean, this is all stuff that can be undone by the next administration. But I mean, it is something, right? I mean, it's something that has actually been done. This is something we don't like. Now it is gone. It'll be interesting to see the next time we have one of these cases, if we get the parent coming out and giving the little speech about how this had nothing to do with race, and actually pastor friendly, and Father Bob said it was like so great to forgive. And, you know, really, this is actually a good thing because everybody's in heaven now, and this is a great opportunity to witness. If we don't get that kind of speech, and if 2 or 3 or more of these cases happen and we don't get this kind of speech from the family members, that's a pretty good indication that they actually were being more or less threatened, saying, hey, as bad as you feel like right now, you're going to feel a lot worse unless you give this little script.
I feel like we already kind of had cracks of this showing its way through in the last couple months. I mean, again, the thing I want to stress about this, it's particularly amazing that a issue that was literally just brought up in YouTube comment sections and people making streams about this found its way to the administration, and they decided to cut its funding. That's what I think is very, very interesting and amazing on this front. But the cracks are already starting to form in the last couple of months with things like the Shiloh Hendricks case, the Arena Zarutska case, and many others. You know, like basically like Austin Metcalf was like the last one where we really saw this kind of behavior of, oh, well, you know, don't look back in anger. And the fact that people are politicizing the death of my son is just so abhorrent and stuff. I mean, you know,
the one during the election was definitely the top. I wish that a white man had killed my son. That was the one where, I mean, it takes a lot at this point because you get kind of black-pilled and cynical sometimes, right? But after I heard that one, I said to my wife, I was like, listen, babe, I got to go to my room for a while. I just need to stare at the wall and just be angry for like 15 minutes. Don't bother me. I'm just going to stare at this one spot and just be angry. But
very, very bad.
I think there's a certain expectation, and this has been brewing for a while. I mean, you can go back to the Molly Tibbetts case, right? Where they say these things, and I think at some level, they think they're being good people and they're virtue signaling. And you don't want to criticize someone how they grieve. I mean, at their lowest possible moment. It's clearly a fate worse than death to lose a child in this particular way. But when they say something like this, it comes off as so scripted and artificial that you think that they're trying to get some sort of credit for someone, and you wonder if the internet has just changed that equation, because instead they're just getting open scorn from everyone. I mean, Molly Tibbetts' dad got turned into a literal cartoon making fun of him for supposedly preferring tacos over the life of his daughter. I mean, how do you deal with that if you're that guy? And how do you deal with that if you're getting this kind of treatment when these other cases happen? I mean, unfortunately, as long as we have a multiracial America, we're going to have more of these types of cases, and we're going to have more and more of these types of situations. I think it was Cannon Hinnant, who was the young boy, if you recall, who was killed by a black guy around the time I think it was around the time George Floyd died. And so it got a little blip, and then nobody cared because obviously he's just a young white boy. It's probably best that he's executed before he grows up to be a racist or whatever. And his mom gave a statement saying, I want the death penalty. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure there's justice here. But there was never any follow-up. And that was such a spectacular case because you're told, again, this is almost like part of the boomer truth regime. You're told that if it bleeds, it leads. You're told that if it's a pretty white girl or a cute white kid and something happens, this is going to lead the news because this is what people want to watch. No, it won't. No one is going to care. And no one, even in a right-wing state, is going to lift a finger because there's no political force behind these sorts of prosecutions. Whereas for somebody like Breonna Taylor, say, there is political momentum. You do have to take the grievances of people like this seriously. That may be changing. And I think more than anything, it's changing simply because of the media and because the reaction when people act this way is now open hostility and mockery as opposed to even sympathy.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen this kind of the mockery definitely has broken containment at this point. I mean, not necessarily even just as it relates to these kind of like racial questions, right? I mean, I was discussing with Last Things on Monday, recording for his Last Picture show that's going to come out in December later this year, and we were talking about the film Gran Torino, and we were kind of just talking about how with things like even the Yellowstone meme, right, where this kind of, oh, we just need to ignore these kinds of problems and we're going to go back to the way that, traditional conservatives were addressing all these things. It's like, oh, the great multiracial America utopia is just right around the corner if we, give a couple more $1 billion and sacrifice a couple more, innocent white girls at the altar of it. It's just around the corner, right? I mean, all of this is just getting met with nothing but mockery and scorn at this point, and increasingly so, especially from younger white guys, which good needs to happen. So anyway, everyone take a little bit of a victory lap on this one. Again, it could all be undone when the next administration comes in if they are Democrats. But again, sometimes it's important for us to have a little rallying stories about things like this and let it be known that, hey, there are people watching the stuff that we do on here. Not everything we do is just, for entertainment that people can gather around the campfire on Thursday night and listen to Pony Express Radio or the Oren McIntyre show or whatever, right? There is work being done here, and we want you guys to be a part of it, which is why you should be joining your local OGC chapters. All right. So speaking of things that are productive to be doing, like this, doing detailed research on government institutions that we could shut down, let's talk about things that are not productive at this point. Everybody remembers this old character, right? Steven Crowder, fresh off of his divorce and threatening his ex-wife, with picking up dog shit in the backyard because the guy's got no frame in his relationship. But whatever. So he made his triumphant return to the college campus in this last week with his famous Change My Mind segments, right? And the caption being, "The left is violent, change my mind." And our very own Old Glory Club account had the opportunity to actually ratio him on this one. So top marks for the OGC account. You watched Charlie Kirk die in front of his family and learned absolutely nothing. The left's celebration and excuse of Charlie's assassination shows there is no discourse to be had with people that believe the world would be a better place without us in it. This is absolutely 100% true. This gets right to the point. You would think that people would learn the lessons after this one instead of just returning to college campuses, trying to, gain clout for yourself, in this one. It's like, have you people just not learned what time it is? We were talking about like the Republicans in power and in actually elected office, not knowing what time it is, but the whole like grifter and Con Inc. media class as well, thinking like, oh, well, we just need to, make it a couple more YouTube bucks by streaming some engagements with, civil debate on college campuses is the way we're going to defeat the left. It's like, fucking hell, man. Did you learn nothing in the last 3 weeks?
Yeah, most of what I did in the official conservative movement or whatever was all this campus organizing. And you would not believe, I used to have this thought experiment. I would go when I was training these kids how to do stuff. And I would say, if you had unlimited money and unlimited manpower, what would you do? So, I'll put it to you guys. Think about that for a second. What do you think was the most common answer I would get? I'd host a debate. That was the best they could do. If I had unlimited money and I had unlimited manpower, I would host a debate. When your political ideology tells you that it is against our principles to pursue our interests, and that the purpose of political action is to discover a magical space where power does not exist because you shouldn't pursue power because that's evil or whatever. Yeah, this is what you end up with. And I think Kirk was in his own category in terms of the effectiveness of what he was doing. I see the value of it, but the tactic in and of itself has fairly limited value because, especially now when you see the way it's proliferated online, I mean, all of these debates certainly cause more heat than light. Nobody is learning anything from them. You're not even really hearing good arguments. It's all about just trying to catch somebody in a viral clip or basically trick them into saying something that may make sense within the flow of the argument, but they can't defend out of context. And then you can crucify them with that forever. And more broadly, I think it just shows the lack of serious, how can I even put this? Is there even an American right? I guess is what I was asking, because we're not going there for entertainment. The purpose of doing this is not just to have fun. If I wanted to have fun, I would be doing other things. The purpose of doing this is to take over the state and use the power of the state to punish enemies and reward friends. And if we're not willing to do those things, if we're there just to engage in sort of a playful dialogue with people who say to our face, we want to kill you, and we want to kill you because you're white or because you're Christian or because you're American or whatever else, what are we even doing here? I mean, you'd be better off taking up sports gambling or something.
Yeah, if you look at the comments under that old Glory Club tweet, retweet, it's all these people going, oh, so you're blackpilling. Oh, so you're giving up. What are you talking about?
How's
what are you
Steven
giving
Crowder doing?
up?
Yeah, it's like, what's he even doing?
What are you? It's like, here's what it is. These are people who grew up online, and they exist online. I don't say this in a negative way. It actually makes me sad. Most of these people do not have in real life friends, and they think that owning the libs is how you're going to win, or you're being defiant by going back to no. There's no, you're not going to win a debate with a terrorist. You're not going to win a debate with someone who wants to kill you. They call you a Nazi. They believe you're a Nazi, and that means you are worthy of death. The only thing to do is kill you. So what the fuck are you doing going back on a campus and doing this? For the only reason he's doing this is to make more money, is to get more fame, is to do, I mean, it's not for, he's not doing it for the country. He's not doing it for his people, whoever he thinks that is, homosexuals or something. You're not this isn't the way you're going to win going forward. The way you're going to win going forward, as Kevin just mentioned, is every fucking person you know gets hired by ICE, or gets hired into the local police department. If you want to start locally, or you want to have power so that you can fight these people. Have power so that you can legitimately fight these people. Have power so that you can legitimately attack them.
These idiots on the normie right here are literally bringing discourse to a gunfight. Fucking idiots, man. It's like with all this discussion about how, like, oh, Charlie Kirk's death is really going to change things, and really, I mean, a lot of people on the side just clearly haven't learned any lessons on this, and it's really important for people like us to attack these fools from the right on this issue, because I guarantee Steven Crowder, if one of our guys who agrees with us on this position, the correct position, mind you, showed up to one of these events and attacked him from that angle, he would have literally nothing to respond with. And if somebody in our audience was to show up to one of these events and gets that reaction caught on tape and clipped, send it to us, and we will absolutely retweet this and get it into the broader ecosystem and change the dialogue on this question. because these people do need to be flanked from the right on these issues. Let's turn our attention to our last story of the night. And this is another person who needs to be attacked thoroughly for this, for a different reason. Steven Crowder does, because he doesn't know what time it is. Look at this clown. Look at this character everyone's been making fun of today. Bryland Holly Handjob here, who's doing a new college tour and was fraudulently proclaiming that he had some deep connections with Charlie Kirk and was going to be his heir apparent, and was grinning ear to ear like the Cheshire Cat just an hour and a half after Charlie Kirk was dead, and somehow got an appearance on Fox News, platformed by Ben Shapiro and all the other normal characters shortly afterwards. Well, now he's going on a college campus tour right now, and he's going to be the new face of the right going forward and the youth in America, right?
They don't understand, and this is something I think a lot of us didn't quite get until after he was butchered in front of us, is how good Charlie Kirk was. I mean, very few people could do what he did. It's a subtle thing to be able to argue these types of positions, engage with your interlocutor, but also shift the people on your side in your direction gradually without scaring the crap out of them. Because it's very easy to just kind of shock them or say something. And there's a value in doing that, but it's not the kind of thing that works when you're in front of a crowd, say. It works on a streaming show. It doesn't work in front of a live audience to just try to do shock value type stuff. I mean, Richard Spencer, I remember in the old days of the alt-right, he did a couple campus speeches, and it didn't particularly go well because he was trying to give them outside the box ideas, what he thought were really interesting and innovative concepts, but they just weren't getting it. It's just the wrong medium for it. It's not even that he was wrong or stupid, certainly not, or anything like that. It was just, it's not the right venue for it. Kirk knew how to work this venue, and he also knew how to do the streaming thing, which is what's really incredible. Very few people could do this. This is just the same. I'm going to be a pundit because I know the right people, and I'm going to recycle the same slogans that you've already heard before. And if I get an argument or some kind of a thing that comes outside the avenue of attack that I've already prepared my canned lines for, I just don't know what to say. And there's just something about the whole approach that it reminds you of the college Republican you would meet at 19 who would show up in a 3-piece suit that's actually not very expensive, but he obviously put a great deal of effort in, and hands you a business card telling you he's a political consultant at 19 or something. And you just immediately are revolted and want to run screaming in the other direction and maybe join the anarchists or something. This is exactly what we don't need at this moment. But unfortunately, I think it's exactly what we're going to get.
This guy, this looks like somebody who was created in a test tube in Unit 8200 in Tel Aviv for the sole purpose of getting him old enough to just rape him over and over again.
Thanks for that image.
I mean,
here I am wondering if I had been too harsh.
He's just, I can't tell you how much I despise this person, because you can just look at him and tell that there's nothing there except lines that he's memorized from guys wearing yarmulkes writing them for him.
Hey, just look at the aesthetics of this too. I still can't believe that's what started last year off.
Amazing.
Unbelievable. But anyway, it's like, yeah, completely created in a test tube. No sense of, reading the room whatsoever. It's like, yeah, I'm going to take a video from my private jet funded by my father and grandfather, who are Republican donors in Alabama and got all of their millions of dollars from funding Section 8 housing. And on top of that, I'm going to speak down to you with my gay hands the entire time. It's like there's nothing organic about this character whatsoever. And I believe we have a picture of his campus tour up here as well. So we can show that on screen for everyone. Yeah, so here we go. Tour dates right now. All right, it's October 2nd right now. So it's at Samford University today. But hey, if anybody in our audience, if you guys are in the Auburn area, University of Alabama, Mississippi State University, Clemson, University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and Florida State University. Take a look at all this stuff right now. Please do indeed show up to this guy's events. People talk about the first Groyper War many years ago. Well, perhaps this needs to be reinvigorated once again. So if anybody has the opportunity to participate in any of these events in the crowd, one of the tactics you guys could do is if they aren't going to take questions, spread yourselves out in the audience and in the crowd, and at least get like a boo recorded or something like that when he says something retarded, because inevitably he will. Like how Israel's our greatest ally or something stupid like that. Definitely start attacking these people. Attack them from the right. It needs to be done. And you can also at the Old Glory Club account, and we will be sure to retweet it and spread it far and wide to people, because this guy really needs to get taken down. To take this guy's scalp would be really, really nice. Just send the right message to people that no, you can't just astroturf somebody into the scene and pretend that he's going to be the next voice of young conservatives in this country, when Charlie Kirk did undoubtedly some major gains for Donald Trump as it related to young white men swinging further to the right. I mean, the fact that it was a 40-point swing from 2016 to 2024 for young white men to Donald Trump, to the Republicans. I mean, Charlie Kirk absolutely had a part to play in that change. So if anyone's got the opportunity, definitely head out and do your duty.
Do super chats and get out of here.
Yep, let's do it. Kevin, if you got to take off here from these super chats.
Go ahead.
All right, cool. Let's scroll up to the top here. You got quite a few tonight. Thank you guys for being generous as always. Herb seasoning for $21.12. An odd denomination. Chili in beans, yes or no? Personally, the addition of beans adds texture, flavor for broth, and necessary fiber and carbs to create a whole meal. What the hell is this super chat? That's a weird one. If your sole avoidance is for gas, your bloodline is weak, it must bear the shame. I mean, beans have to be in your chili. I mean, come on. Obviously, the correct choice. Solid Snake 1964. He did not sneak behind enemy lines in his cardboard box and his suppressed pistol to get the first super chat in this week. So shame on you, sir. Evening gents, getting the old HVAC replaced finally. Ludicrous how expensive these things are. Some good heritage Americans are doing it too. At least I'll be mighty toasty and happy this winter, unlike Mr. Greenblatt. Wow. I bet those tears taste sweet, metaphorically, of course. Salute. Thank you, Mr. Solid Snake. Christopher Burke sends us $2 and a salute. Thank you very much. Underscore for $2 says, when everything's racist, nothing is. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the whole point about this, hate glossary, right? It's like, yeah, we're gonna deem the Christian cross as a sign of extremism, saying Christ is king. Okay, dude. Yeah. JDL 41 for $20. Yeah. Good evening, brothers. I have a question. What the F is a Braylon Holly hand, and why do I have the urge to punch it? Yeah, well, he definitely has a punchable face. That's certainly true. We need to bring bullying back. Shove people into lockers, man. That's just a requirement. City Breakdancer Man. Definitely one of my favorite super chatters. What a great name. Every time I look forward to it. For $10 says, Israel's social media blitz has even my normie friends JQing. Well, I believe it.
It's backfiring massively.
Yeah, I mean, I've never opened TikTok because, I've never ever bothered to get the app on my phone for obvious reasons. But from what I hear, there definitely are some spicy topics that get talked about on that platform. And famously,
it's still controlled. I mean, there are still certain terms, obviously, you can't search, certain figures you can't search. There are ways to get around it, but there are ways to get around it on anything. It's not that there's more free speech on X than there is on TikTok.
I mean, I just love how we got that amazing clip, which honestly, we should add that to the soundboard, to be honest. That amazing clip from the primary debates 2 years ago when Nikki Haley said, for every 15 minutes, you become like 15% more anti-Semitic by scrolling TikTok every day. It's like, oh, man. It's got to be running for one of the most retarded things an American politician has ever said on a debate stage. That's got to be up there. Anyway, Theod Syndica for $5. Did you guys see Stefan Molyneux's tweet today? Certain people got very upset. Now, I had to unfollow Molly Meme like within a few days when he came back onto Twitter. I mean, the guy is just woefully he's like a creature out of time at this point. He was just out of the game for too long. It's like, really? We're gonna be talking about the same stuff you were talking about when you were banned back in like 2019 or whatever. It's like, times have changed, man. So no, I did not see this tweet. I don't know if you guys know what he's talking about.
No.
Yeah, I don't know
didn't
either.
see it.
All right.
I mean, that's the legends of the past when they return. Sometimes it's better that they didn't.
Yeah.
He had a good tweet recently where he said, people tell me that if you're an Indian and you go to London and you move to London, you become English. He goes, so if an Englishman goes to India, does that mean they become Indian?
Yeah, and then he had the picture of guys in the Raj and everything else. I mean, that's the thing, is if that's true, then Kipling is the greatest Indian poet who ever lived.
Enlightened Despot for 14 Canadian dollars. Willing to make videos for right-wing billionaires. Yeah, I mean, really? I mean, just like the amazing stories you hear from like people like Destiny who were getting like, $10,000 a month from Progressive Victory or whatever that NGO was or whatever. It's like, really? That guy? How does he get that kind of money? I mean, just giving us like a fraction of the money that some of these left-wingers get and the results that we produce. It's like, imagine what we would do. It's just so frustrating. We do so much with so little. And we could do so much more if we just had a little bit more help from people. Anyway, Menayud Sushi for $5. Politicians worry about the next election. Statesmen worry about the next generation. Ian Smith. Oh, the Rhodesia guy? Oh,
yeah, that was Ian Smith who said that.
Yeah.
Of course, Ian Smith, I mean, that's a great statesman in some ways, but also a cautionary tale. Although it's unclear about what he could have done differently. The Great Betrayal is definitely worth reading if you can get a hold of that. One quick thing, I know you got to go through these fast, but just one quick note. That was what I wrote my thesis on a million years ago back in school, was Rhodesia.
Really?
And the thing that really took it down, the teacher, by the way, was, if you ever had to read Things Fall Apart, like the one post-war African novel you always have to read in school, that Chinua Achebe's daughter, that was my professor back at William & Mary for African history. But she liked it, and she agreed with what I said in that paper, which was basically that the reason Rhodesia went down is because white South Africans in the 80s tried to make a separate peace with all the black Marxist regimes. And they thought that if they could throw Rhodesia to the wolves, that they would be accepted and they would be allowed to remain as just part of the African geopolitical climate. And of course, that was not true at all. Once they lost Rhodesia, South Africa just became that much more vulnerable. So there's a lesson in there about sacrificing a weaker friend because you think you'll be able to buy a separate piece. You're not going to be able to.
And now with the new crime reports coming out, South Africa is the fourth most dangerous country on the entire planet. Just amazing. All right. Ski Bum 220. He's the big winner tonight with $100 super chat, sir. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate that over here. For $100, he says, does anyone know what that big meeting of generals and admirals in Quantico was about? Thanks for all you guys are doing. We are going to win. Salute. I mean, we didn't really talk about that one tonight because, there really wasn't much to it aside from Pete Hegseth calling all the generals fat and saying that they all had.
Yeah, I think that's literally what it was about. And I think it was just sort of being like, hey, this is for real. We're going to start enforcing the policies. We're not going to be doing this DEI stuff anymore. Get it together. I mean, it's an open secret that for a very long time, the higher ranks of the military have been dominated by risk-averse people who know how to work the chain of command and steer clear of the dangerous combat situations where, not so much because they're afraid of combat, I'm not saying that, but they're afraid of doing something that might get them in trouble. They're afraid of acting the way we think of military men as acting. And those are the higher ranks at this point. And they're already looking forward to their after-service jobs as corporate lobbyists and whatever else. And Trump and the Secretary of War, as we must call him now, basically laid down the law and said, look, the chains of command end with us. So you're just going to have to deal with it. I think that's all the meeting was about. I don't think it was secret planning for World War III or anything like that.
I mean, I'll say one thing on it really quickly is the one thing I did like is that they forced everybody to be there in person and they didn't just send everybody an email and a letter. I really like that because, like, yeah, you're going to get off your fat, lazy asses and you're going to show up here and you're going to be in full dress and you're going to listen to me talk down to you. I mean, that I do like, because it pissed off the right people because there were a couple generals that leaked it to the press a couple days afterwards saying, well, this could have just been an email. And it's like, and that's exactly why they didn't do it. It's exactly why you need to be there in person. So good for them, I would say. Cringe Walker sends us $5. Thank you very much, my friend. In 406 AD, Romans made up like 70% of the West Roman government. By 415 AD, Romans only governed a handful of cities. It can happen fast. Well, that's certainly true. Chaos Tank Engine for $5. What do you call a bulletproof Irishman? Ricochet. I don't get it. Bolero 393 for $5. I've got a cover of the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations called Deportations playing on repeat in my head, hoping to meme it into existence. Gulf City Librarian for $5. Ilhan Omar, the DOJ, is working on its first denaturalization case this week. There is hope. Let's hope so, man. I mean, she's the easiest case for it in the world, man.
It's so open and shut too.
Yeah, it's just easiest person. Hammer Rain for $10 says Kevin's one of my favorite posters of all time. Yes, he is a excellent poster.
Appreciate it.
Yes, everyone should follow his Twitter account. And you definitely do have the running for one of the greatest tweets of all time, I would say. I mean, it's one I see circulated frequently. It's the all of American life revolves around making enough money to escape the consequences of the Civil Rights Act. Yeah,
it's funny, but it's not funny. It's one of those ones you laugh and then you think about it and have to go for a walk for like 3 hours.
Yeah. All right. Herb Seasoning for $2 says PBS, Pete berating Spurgs. Yeah, exactly. That's what we should have. We should replace the PBS broadcasting with Pete just telling everyone to seek Canadian healthcare. Amazing. Next Monster sends us $50. Thank you very much, sir. We greatly appreciate it. He says, salute. Cheers, boys. Keep up the good work. Well, we're not stopping anytime soon, sir. So thank you very much. Our favorite Australian woman in the chat, Mrs. Dawn Browning, sends us a super sticker as she does every week. And this time it is a anthropomorphic gaming controller growing larger and larger and sprouting jacked arms with a level up written over it. So thank you very much, Mrs. Dawn Browning. We appreciate it. Seasider sends us $10 in a salute as he does every week. Thank you very much, sir. One day you will get the Seasider wing of saluting in OGC headquarters. So, well-armed corgi, good name, for $20. There are still idiots on the right talking about the pendulum and how precedent will be abused next time the left is in office. They're literally shooting people right now. What the fuck are you talking about? These people are never going to figure out what time it is. The old paradigm is over. Yeah, I mean, 100%. Yeah. How could the pendulum get any worse than they're literally shooting people in the streets right now?
Oh, it could get much worse. It's just that precedent one way or the other is not going to affect it.
Mm-hmm. It's like this is just the way the game is played, though. It's like Democrats break the rules, Republicans get in office and play by the rules. Democrats get back in office and break the rules again. Oh, maddening. Memphis Scipion for $3. Oh man, Kevin DeAnna co-host, dude, is the man, and Identity Politics is the best recurring right-wing show out there. Kevin convinced me Italians really are white. Well,
I can convince people of anything then. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it, especially that you won't have me killed once we actually win.
Maniyud Sushi for $10. The Constitution has failed. I don't care about some piece of paper. The Constitution is only thrown in our faces when it can be used against us. Sam Hyde. Yes, he definitely gets an A+ for his videos this year. His trio of videos this year as it relates to the H-1B problem, the Indian question, and this most recent one about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Sam Hyde truly has his finger on the pulse better than most people of his generation. So, thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
totally
you for
agree.
Sam Hyde. Yeah, really, really good dude. And if anyone has an opportunity to see his show, you absolutely should. I got the opportunity to see and meet the man last year really, really great time. Everyone should go and support him. Florida Man Adventures, I like that, for $20 says, good evening, gents. The South Florida OGC Proto Chapter has another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. Those interested joining, please contact South Florida Flagger Association at gmail.com.
South Florida Flagler Association at gmail.com. Flagler's a section down there.
Oh, there you go. All right, perfect. Everyone get in contact. Simeon Robin for $2. Realistic. Will E-Verify happen? Is that the win con? I guess got to proofread your super chats, man. Or the win condition, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we need to pay attention, the thing that I will forgive everything, and anyone who says we shouldn't vote for Trump, I'll rip your throat out with my teeth if we get this, is if they get rid of birthright citizenship, if the Supreme Court says that actually we are. Now, I do not think that is going to happen. I'll be clear. I do. The amount of trouble that would cause is something that the court does not want to deal with. And like with everything with the immigration thing, the short-term costs are so great that we're not going to do what is necessary in the long term. And so we're just going to keep kicking the can down until the country collapses, or you have a situation where the system has to do something drastic to save itself. But then again, I didn't think they were going to get rid of Roe v. Wade. So
That's true.
maybe.
Well,
If they get rid of, I think the win condition is getting rid of birthright citizenship. E-Verify would be great, certainly. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. It's just, you got to remember, so many of these Republicans in Congress are there because they're basically second string elites, and what they want to be is official corporate lobbyists for cheap labor as opposed to unofficial ones. I think it was the guy you referenced earlier. Was it Representative Bacon, right? Perfect name. Who was, and he was actually one of the ones when the Trump administration blinked on worksite raids for meat packers and for agricultural companies, said this is a great thing. We need to make sure that these guys have an exemption for all this stuff. This is very important. This industry is vital to America. Then Trump reversed course the next day, and they said, actually, we're going to be raiding everybody again. But the fact that he was so quick to jump out in front of it and say, yes, absolutely, illegals need to be working at these places, that tells you a lot about how hard it's going to be to get E-Verify through.
Yeah. Very true. I mean, to your point about the birthright citizenship, I could totally see a situation where the court goes 5v4, and the one person who is the tie-breaking vote is none other than Amy Coney Barrett.
Oh, yeah.
Haitian children.
That's absolutely. If I had to bet on what's going to happen, it'll be that. Exactly that.
Wonderful. All right, moving right along here, we got Anti-Defecation League sent us $2, and it's a poo emoji on a Star of David emoji. So, all right, thank you for the $2. Judge Lot for $10 says, apologies, gentlemen. I had a complete brain fart and sent my first super chat via YouTube. As an OGC Substack subscriber, I should know better. Also, YouTube blocked the term brothers in arms. Not surprised by that at all. Maple Copperhead for $10 sends us a salute. Thank you very much. Jackson Walker sends us a $7.77 super chat. That is also a salute. Thank you very much, sir. And the final super chat of the evening is our own Enrico Palazzo for $10. Have Kevin on more. Big fan of his maiden album.
Oh man, I like the name. I just started laughing to myself just now with Enrico Palazzo. So
it's like, it's Enrico Palazzo. Yeah,
it's so good, man.
The GF and I just watched that movie recently. So,
and Enrico, DeAnna was on 2 maiden albums. The first one and Killers. Sorry,
there you go.
Just gotta correct you there.
All right. That is it for the super chats this evening. Thank you everyone who keeps the show running. Be sure to tune into American Spirits on Monday. Oh, do we have one more that came in at the last moment? Let's see. Florida Man Adventures one more time for $5. One of Sam Hyde's writers was at Doug Mackey's Free the Memes night in Miami earlier this year. Really? I mentioned OGC to him and we discussed Camp of the Saints. Oh, cool. All right. Nice. Yeah. Sam Hyde's definitely our guy. Anyway, thank you everyone for the super chats this evening. Once again, everyone should be listening to American Spirits on Monday. Charlemagne and Turnip Seed are doing an excellent series. They're on episode 13 now, I think, of addressing the question we are all wondering about: what is an American? They're doing some excellent deep history dives on that one, so definitely be sure to tune into that. Tune in on Wednesdays to Mr. Not Me Not You's stream, The Chapter House, where he interviews our various OGC chapters around the country and listens to their local history and any events or projects that they've got cooking. Pete, you've always got something going on. What do you have to promote this week, my friend?
Oh, just mentioning American Spirits. I will be on American Spirits at the beginning of November. We will be announcing a big time guest right before that happens.
Oh, yeah.
But go check out an episode I just dropped like 3.5 hours ago with there's this guest I had on there. I think his name is Kevin DeAnna. So check that out.
Controversial figure.
Yeah, very.
I don't like him. I prefer James Kirkpatrick.
I know. Maybe we can get Greg Hood on the stream one of these days. I don't know. Anyway.
That pussy.
Yeah. All right. Mr. DeAnna, thank you for coming on the show tonight. Do you have anything?
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right. Do you have anything to promote?
I mean, just the show Identity Politics. You can see it on Rumble and Odyssey. I just put up episode 26 on my X as we were talking here. And episode 27 will be out tomorrow. We're doing it 3 times a week now, and it's sometimes live stream, but it's usually recorded. But we're going to be doing more episodes more often, live streamed. But we're still trying to get like the overall system set up. But this is what's going to take Amaran to the next level, because this is what's needed to happen for a very long time. And I think that the main thing which we're going to need to be thinking about politically going forward is, I think we've gone about as far as we can with the idea of spreading awareness and memeing and getting ideas out there. It's time. How do we build actual white identity in this country? How do we build real political power? How do we build the kind of political machines that even someone like Ilhan Omar can take absolutely for granted? Do we really have less self-organizational capacity than Somalians? Getting around that is basically what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing.
All right, everyone, be sure to tune into that. For myself, people can look at the backlog of gaming streams I've done the last 2 months or so. On Sundays, I've been playing a lot of hunting games. Cabela's Pro Hunts has been a lot of fun, so people can watch that. But yeah, check out the rest of the OGC content. We'll be here next week to discuss the news of the day.